All right, so it's about 5 minutes past 6 on March 19th. Gonna call the regular select board meeting to order, although I'd have to say it's anything but regular in this time of coronavirus. So we're all trying to practice social separation. We've got a bunch of people on the phone, virtual phone, and we've got some of us here. So we're gonna roll through this agenda as efficiently as we can. First item is to adjust agenda. I know, so we've only got 2 items. For me, I'd like to add an item number 3 to discuss the Economic Development Loan Fund, and if the select board would be interested in offering some sort of forbearance on payments for a few months for folks who have those loans, because I think a bunch of folks who have those loans are restaurant type owners in the village, and it's gonna be rough times. So if we could add that as an item 3.
Is that executive session?
I don't think it needs to be. We're not talking about anybody's contract or anything. It's just more of a policy question, I think.
Okay.
Is that okay with everybody?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, resolution sounds good to me.
Okay.
Should have Kaylee
Sounds good to me too.
Should have just identified, we have 2 of our select board
Oh, sorry.
members that are accessing mobily. So Kaylee is coming in mobile and Lucian is as well. And our scribe for the minutes is Amanda, so she's also coming in remote.
And Doug McClure's
Yeah.
on the
Doug's on for the
line
Gazette, on
remotely
behalf of the
too, so
Gazette.
he's in the meeting, as it were. All right, so,
A motion to accept the agenda as adjusted?
well, sure, unless, does anybody have anything else to add?
Can I just really quickly, this is Kaylee, can I just add that those of you who are there in person, it's pretty hard to hear Sherry and Wiz. Eric and Sean, we can hear you really well, but if we could just somehow.
I'll repeat stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, thank you for pointing that out. All right, so any other changes to the agenda?
No, sounds good to me.
Okay, so Sherry's making a motion to accept the amended agenda.
Second?
And Wiz has seconded that. Any more discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Hi.
Aye.
Okay, good, that's everyone, thank you. Oh, I should just note too, just a matter of procedure on the Secretary of State's.
Right there. Put that right there. Move my iPad to that mic and then we'll be able to hear them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I believe so.
Secretary of State's guidelines for virtual open meetings, it says if we end up with a vote that's not unanimous, we need to do a roll call, just so we know, just because it's a little awkward to tell, but, so, just so you know. All right, but anyway, adjusted agenda accepted unanimously. Next is select board to approve minutes from last time, which was March 5th. Could I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
I have a motion from Wiz,
Second?
a second from Sherry. Any discussion, any changes to the minutes from last time?
No, they look good to me.
All good? All in favor of adopting the minutes as written, please say aye.
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 Okay, that's everyone, so it passes, thank you. Great, next up is communication from the audience, which is thin tonight, thin on the ground. Next, we're gonna roll right into town manager's report. Sean, you wanna tell us
Sure.
what you've been up to?
Yep, you want to bring that back, that'd be good. Okay, so yeah, obviously a lot of the focus this past week and a half period has just been reaction, response, planning to the coronavirus situation. A lot of communications with our board, our staff, citizens, other folks and groups in Hardwick and beyond. So that's been keeping all of us pretty busy. We have been doing updates to our website, to Front Porch Forum, I know Chief Cochran's been sharing updates to the police department Facebook page, and then other folks are helping relay it. In effect, everybody should be advised the office operations are definitely being impacted, and we're doing like many folks are doing right now and limiting no public access, doing our best to practice some social distancing. The library is closed up now, so everybody should be aware of that. They are still working. Just like our office, we are still working, but we're doing most of our work via phone, email, and some remote operations that are taking place. Same for offices and other offices in the Memorial Building, so that includes the town clerk's office, the zoning office, the lister's office, any work by the assessors. I think everybody would recognize it's just different approaches on things, and we're doing our best to be adaptable and keep up as best we can. I want to make sure everybody is aware that I wouldn't want anybody to think are there critical functions for the town are being impacted negatively. We are obviously keeping our highway work going, plowing, salting, sanding, whatever that might be. Hopefully we're getting past the winter, but we still could potentially have some storms. So Tom and his crew are keeping up on things. Chief Cochran's going to report here in a little bit, and Tom as well, what they want to share. But obviously our police department is keeping up with the services that they offer regularly. So I wouldn't want anybody to think that our critical operations, at this phase are ramped back. They're not. So I just want to make sure everybody understands we're doing our best there. We understand that for many folks, whether it's citizens or businesses, there's, it's an impact as far as how we are having some delays in some of the office services that we are offering, but we are doing our best, so be patient with us. Everybody has been understanding on this, and we appreciate it. The other thing I'll point out is our public water and our wastewater service, and obviously this is for the village unique to the downtown area here. No impact to the operations there, so make sure you clearly understand that we're keeping things rolling there as well. And in case you've heard misinformation, the coronavirus is not a waterborne disease, so there's nothing that you would need to be concerned about in regards to, can I use the water or not? You absolutely should be and can be using the product that we are providing. It's meeting all the state and federal standards. Just one thing on this really quick. I'm starting to see some news stories about, I think everybody's aware there's certain runs on certain products. One of those is toilet paper. We will just please remind everybody it's number 1 and number 2, and toilet paper out down the drain only. If you're using other things, those can have catastrophic impacts to our collection system, our pumping systems, and it can cause backups. That would be really, it's going to be potentially a violation or, an additional public health impact if we're backing up our wastewater system. So please do your best on that if you would. We are, as I mentioned, doing our website updates, Front Porch Forum, Facebook. I want to say thank you to Hardwick Community Television. I know Leaf and I have been exchanging some information, and if I'm not mistaken, he's running a banner ongoing, which is getting the most current and, from my opinion, the up-to-date information from the State of Vermont Department of Health on where we're at with the outbreak. And just to read it back, it's healthvermont.gov/COVID-19. Or if you don't have internet access, you can always use the state information line, which is the number 211. And we are trying to do updates to our website, but we're not as nimble as some of these other sites. So those 2 clearinghouses I just mentioned, the health department and the call-in line, that they're really good information. Any particular questions, they're doing an excellent job of keeping information up to date. I would call your attention to, I've mentioned this on one of the posts here recently, there is a State of Vermont 211 Citizen Assistant Registry for Emergencies. It's a care program. If you want to get into the system, if you're vulnerable, if you have a medical issue, if we have, as an example, a power outage and you might need some additional assistance, the way this program works, it's an established system. You're in the database, and then what happens if we were to have a situation like an extended power outage, just as an example, we get a call back to our police department or our fire department contacts that says, hey, at this address, there's somebody that may be vulnerable, so let's make sure we're checking in on them. So please take advantage of that system. And then related to this, if you know of any neighbors that might need support, by themselves, vulnerable, can't get out, can't get the resources they need, Don't visit them personally for the social distancing issues unless you have to do a delivery, but please be calling on them. You know, there's a lot of people that are going to be needing support as we move forward here. So, you know, we'll try to help each other out as we always do. So please do that. I did get some information this afternoon. I just want to relay this really quickly. I got some information from Agency of Commerce and Community Development. And in that item, this is a national thing, and it's going to take a little bit of time for this to trickle down to us. But at the federal level, obviously, there's a lot that's going on. But just for what it's worth, the Senate and House have been working collaboratively. They work bipartisan approach to get this done in a really fast fashion on a bill that the President signed on March 18th yesterday, and it's referred to as the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. Just a couple of highlights from that. Ensures all Americans have access to free testing for the coronavirus. Establishes paid emergency leave, including both 14 days of paid sick leave and up to 3 months of paid family and medical leave. Enhances unemployment insurance, a step that will extend protections to furloughed workers. Suspends supplemental nutritional assistance program work requirements. So in Vermont, that's the Three Squares Vermont program. Gives schools flexibility on how free and reduced price lunches are being delivered. I know that our schools are doing a bang-up job of getting meals out, and I appreciate their efforts there, obviously under the guidance and direction of the Vermont Agency of Education. In addition, on this bill that was just signed off yesterday, boosts Medicaid funding for states during the crisis, provides additional funding for home-delivered and prepackaged meals to low-income seniors. So, we recognize that federally it takes some time for these things to come down, but there's steps being taken across the board, in an effort to try to help ourselves out here. We got to do our part to follow the guidance about social distancing, and everybody recognizes this information is changing by the hour. So do your part. If we can do what is recommended of us, then hopefully we're going to get into a recovery position a lot faster. There are a lot of questions that are coming at all of us, and just speaking on behalf of the town employees, the board members and other folks that I'm interacting with very regularly now, we're doing our best to be supportive and help out. And there's some things we're not necessarily sure what the answers are, but again, we're trying to do the best we can for the good of the community and everybody involved. So that's it. That's what I want to comment on.
That's good. Thank you.
May I, Sean?
Yeah.
Question?
If somebody.
Just a minute, Doug.
If somebody wants to get involved with the Vermont CARE thing, how do they do that?
Yeah, so for everybody on the line, Wiz's question was if they want to get involved with the Vermont CARE program, how do they go about doing that? What I would recommend is you can do a simple internet search on Vermont 211, and it will get you right into their website. And I haven't looked for this specific piece of information, but I'm assuming they have some information in there about, okay, how can you maybe assist?
You were wondering about how you sign up?
How do you sign up?
You can
Oh,
sign-
I'm sorry, I
So
misinterpreted.
online, they have an online form you can sign up online. I don't know how you do it if
Leaf
you
could
don't
maybe
do it
zoom
online.
in. So, maybe not, but okay, so if you can't zoom in, let me do this, Leaf. You don't need to zoom in on this. So, I'm sorry, I misinterpreted the question.
Well,
The question was, how does anybody get signed up for this? You can call 211, and basically if you don't have internet access, you can ask to be registered for the Citizens Assistance Registry for Emergencies. So that would be a good first step. If you have internet access, if you do a search for Vermont 211 CARE, C-A-R-E, then you'll go right to this E911 website that is administered by the United Way, the Vermont 211 Commission, as well as Vermont Emergency Management. There's a form right in the front part of this web page where you can get the link and get the information on how to go about signing up.
And this is valid for more than just this particular emergency?
That's correct.
This goes on, okay.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Wiz is asking about if this is for this emergency, and this system has been set up and established for years, so it wasn't just created for the situation that we're in now. It's an established system, and it's something that folks could definitely take advantage of. That's a good question. Doug, did you have a question?
Yeah, I don't know if anybody's checking
email, we just got something called an urgent media advisory from the state of Vermont without any details. And they usually don't say urgent.
Yeah, so I can't address it. I don't know what's in the content of this. Do you want me to answer this? Yeah. So I don't know what that might read. You know, again, I don't know, Doug. It's, we're getting a lot of information coming in, and you know, I know you're aware in the media, and citizens are aware in the media that, you know, there are things coming up like, hey, we need the construction industry to lend out any N95 masks, you know, for our health service providers. So, you know, it could be something like that, but I'm not sure. I would just be speculating on what you're seeing there.
Okay, thanks.
To the point though, Doug, I'll address this. Chief Cochran and Tom, and he's our highway super, but he's also the fire chief for our community, and myself as the town manager, and I'm also the deputy health officer. We're getting regular situational reports from the State Operations Emergency Center, the Operations Center. Those are coming daily, if not more frequently. So, you know, we're getting some pretty constant updates about things that we need to be watching out for at the municipal level to ensure we're doing what we need to be doing, you know, as a town, as a community, as a police force, as a fire department, as public works, you know, whatever it might be. So what I want to project there is that we are getting some guidance from these other industry experts that are keeping track of information at the state and federal level. I think that's important for everybody to know.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Sean. Next is road foreman report. I know Tom was working on Mattville Road today.
Hopefully it held up.
Hopefully it held up. I haven't been over there.
Yeah, actually it's been a pretty good spring so far, and all in all, we ended up touching up on a spot on Bridgman. We also had another spot on Reno Road, one on Hardwick Farms, and then I believe the other one was over on Montgomery Road. Nothing, you know, too serious, you know, just kind of a little ruddy, you know, but we ended up fixing all those up. The other thing we've been doing is we got the grader all maintained for the springtime here, get going and stuff. The only thing we got left to do was that, and put new tires on it, which we have over at the garage. Got the bucket loader all serviced also. We were signed up for a couple classes, but of course those all got canceled. One was the MSHA class, which some of the pits now are requiring that we have before we can enter them. So I don't know how that's going to play out this spring, you know, with the pits and stuff. Besides that, you know, things have been going pretty good, I guess. Trying to keep up with the patch and holes downtown and stuff. Hopefully they're holding right now, and everybody's hoping for the asphalt plants to open up a little earlier, but we'll see anyways. But besides that, it's pretty much it, I guess. Guys taking time off. Trucks are all working good.
That's amazing.
Yeah, well, end of the year, so they're getting, you know, they're not pushing hard or anything like that. So yeah, they're doing good so far. So.
And your stockpile of material for dirt roads is holding up?
Yep, we got plenty of stone right now, and actually the guys have been hauling some stay mat in for the last couple of days, stockpiling that. So once things starts drying out a little bit more, I actually did a test run up on Montgomery Road today there, because there's some spots where it was nice and dry. So I ended up grading not deep, just kind of scuffing off and just filling in some of the potholes and stuff. But if we get a good week where the, you know, in the 40s and 50s, and we're gonna have a good, we'll be out grading. They're getting ready, so.
That's good news.
Yep.
It's good to have good news.
Oh yeah, for once.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, Eric, is it okay if I offer something before I forget? I want to just send our condolences to the Gravel family. Mike, one of our highway guys, and he's also on our fire department. His dad passed away within this past week, so just on behalf of the town, we're sorry for your loss. You know, just given what we're into, we understand that, you know, you weren't able to conduct a funeral at this time, but it's going to be coming in the future. So, you know, please know everybody here is thinking about you, and I think it's important we mention this right now. So I just thank you for letting me do that.
Aaron.
All right, as far as police department, I followed stuff through last weekend, obviously, as things developed. Monday morning, I chose to close the east end of the building, which is the senior center and so on and so forth. There were some various groups. AARP did taxes right during this period of time. So I chose to close that end of the building to limit exposure to the building. Contacted all of those groups. They had already decided they were canceling everything anyway, so it was in no way a big deal, to them. But, so we limited that, exposure from that end of the building, as of course we have central air through the whole building, as well. So we did that, and as things arose, we're completely closed now as far as the building itself, is closed.
You mean closed to the public?
Closed to the public, yep. We're still doing everything as normal, and still operating out of the building, obviously, as normal. But as far as closed to the public, we'd have people come in looking for forms or wanting to report a crash that they had a couple days ago in a parking lot somewhere, et cetera, et cetera.
So those people should do those things by phone.
By phone,
Yeah.
and we did post a notice out in front of the door, which Sean had drafted, and so that notice is out there. For emergencies, they should still be calling 911. For non-emergencies, we still have our regular phone number. If you need to report that you hit a deer 2 days ago and did some damage to your car, call us on the phone. We're not going to open up the door for that, to potentially expose the building to something. So, we regularly cleaning. I've talked with chiefs throughout the state every day throughout we've all talked and to see what best practices are, because this is something none of us have ever experienced, even ones that have been on, well, I've been here 10 years as chief, but some have been much longer than that throughout the state, and nobody's really ever experienced anything like this. So whatever best practices are, I guess, is what we're developing now, and as we go along. So so we've done that. So anything that's non-emergency, most departments have chosen to do over the phone if possible. If it comes down to deciding what is emergent or what is not, then there's a supervisor on at all times of the day, and we'll work through that. But yeah, we're doing everything, and for the most part, business as usual. So, Liz, you had a question?
I do. If I hit a deer 2 days ago and I decide that, I'm calmed down enough that I can call and tell you about it, what's the probability I'll get a busy signal? If the people who come through the door aren't coming through the door, they're coming through the phone, is that going to cause any congestion with your phone system?
Yeah. Wiz was wondering, if anybody couldn't hear, Wiz was wondering about how clogged up our phone system would be getting. If somebody were reporting something that were non-emergency, like a late report, motor vehicle crash with no injuries, things like that. We haven't experienced anything, any type of clogging. So I think people are actually, this is, they're experiencing it throughout the state, and so people are realizing really what is an emergency and what isn't, and so they're spacing their calls out, et cetera, to that. So we haven't really seen any issues. Everything seems so far, knock on wood, to be going as smooth as possible. So I think Kaylee does. Kaylee, did you have a question?
Just really quickly. This is Kaylee. I'm just wondering, just following up on you closing the facility, if there's a plan to sanitize the senior center in particular, as one of our most vulnerable populations. Is that something that is going to happen while the building is closed?
We actually have somebody that cleans the building twice a week anyways. And as we know right now, the virus itself is a 3-day on surfaces. So we're not looking at least until April 6th, if not later, to open up that end of the building at this point in time. But there is a gentleman that comes in and cleans actually the whole building, and does a good job at sanitizing all of that. So, so we haven't planned anything other than that, as he's done a pretty good job with that. And given the time period of exposure to a surface, I believe we're going to be okay unless we hear something different. And of course, this virus is all new, so none of us really, it does change from day to day. From what we've heard, There is studies that have been done that actually shows it stays on different surfaces for different periods of time, depending on the composition of the surface. So the latest that I've heard at this point in time is 3 days that it can live on a surface. So, I think we're going to be, from what we have for information so far, we'll be good on that end when it comes time to open that part of the building back up.
Great, thanks for doing that, Aaron.
Sure. That's where we're at. I notified, Greensboro Select Board and spoke with them, and you all had email and through email that, we're still doing what we can. We do have to, be cautious, be careful, obviously. Law enforcement is essential. So we're trying to stay as healthy as we can, and that's where, some of the limiting the exposure for us, to do. Should, an officer, either display symptoms or, come down with the virus, then it creates a major problem. Because we're such a small police department, it's likely many of us would have been exposed prior to, knowing it, is the possibility. The Emergency Operations Center is up and active, and should that happen, we would notify them, and try to work out to continue coverage throughout and so on. So, again, we're working through all these as these questions and comments and problems arise. Police departments are seeing, New York City is seeing issues, different ones are starting to see. We're the cape that we wear does not keep us immune from anything. So, we could get the virus just as easily as anybody. So it is starting to creep into first responders and so on around the country. That's going to be another problem that we'll have to figure out, and probably will create ways to deal with that in the future. So, but we're doing the best we can to the cars get cleaned at the end of the shift with sanitary, Clorox wipes and so on, and we're trying to do all we can, and washing our hands as much as we can, and everything. So we're doing what we know so far. So
That's all we can do.
you popped up, Doug. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question, Aaron.
Go ahead.
Great. Are you seeing any kind of reduction in the amount of incidents in general due to people staying indoors, or any change?
Not necessarily, no. I haven't run numbers really to see anything there. So that hasn't been, stats hasn't been my top, priority there. So I couldn't say for sure, but, we're still, we're still working.
Seems like the kind of thing we're likely to know well after the fact. Like end of the year, maybe, when you're doing your end of the year reports, you might note something.
Right now, it's too early to tell, I think, really, for anything like that.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions for Aaron? Thank you.
Sure.
All right, so next is, the Hardwick Electric report given by Mike Sullivan.
I don't think Mike's on the line,
Okay.
so we'll have to bypass that.
I'm gonna jump over that. I do know that Hardwick Electric met with a bunch of people remotely for their meeting this week. We were sharing some, guidance from the Secretary of State for open meetings remotely. But we'll hear from them when we can. All right, so item 1 is select board to consider allowing the library to do an October 2020 coin drop, because that month is now vacant, and discuss what you do in future years if something similar happens again.
Community Justice Center stepped out.
Oh, so
Yeah,
it was vacated by somebody else had the slot.
That's
and they
correct. He
pulled
stepped
out,
out.
and the library is in line.
Yeah.
So I think it would be appropriate to entertain a motion to allow the library to use the October coin drop slot.
So moved.
So Wiz moved that,
Second.
and Sherry has seconded it. Do folks have any comments, question, discussion?
Just on the back part of that, Eric, which,
Yeah, let's do the
Wiz.
motion and then, is that right?
yeah, it's good by me.
All right, so all in favor of granting library the October coin drop slot, please say aye.
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 And I'll abstain, of course.
And, oh, Lucian's abstaining, okay. So the roll call is Sherry, I, Wiz, I, Eric, I, Kaylee, I, and Lucian abstains due to a connection with the library through his home life. All right, so good, library can do that. And then the second part of the item is to discuss what to do in the future if something similar happens. I'm okay handling it this way.
Just maybe have the overflow list and if
Keep an
something
overflow
comes up,
list
it
and-
gets plugged in.
Yeah, and then at that point, you'd have to contact whoever is next on the list first, probably, to make sure they still want to do it in whatever month is open, but
It doesn't happen too frequently.
Does not.
You guys know best on this,
Doesn't.
but it doesn't happen too frequently, but in case it happens, we could have one or two, holdovers. just
Never
in
happened
case.
before in the last 12 years.
right, yeah, it's not, yeah, Sherry's saying it hasn't happened in her tenure, so. All right, I don't think we need to do anything special there. All right, next up is item 2, select board to discuss how the town might be able to assist people who need services, et cetera, during the challenging time of COVID-19. Sean's covered some of that, I think, in that there is a statewide registry that people can sign up to, and we have our emergency management team that's been meeting. That statewide registry can get pushed back to the emergency management group in the case that we need to do something to help those people. So I think it's a good thing to discuss. I'm not sure exactly if others have ideas on actual things we could do.
Well, I've been thinking a lot about the internet and how much we are responding to this through internet activities, and it's great because it's a way, there are lots of places to get lots of really good information, but I'm very keenly aware that there are a lot of people who are not on the internet. And so I guess the thing to do is to reiterate what Sean said, is if you have an older family member who isn't on the internet, it just, take on the responsibility to find this stuff to help the family member, keep them up to date with what's going on. There's stuff going on in television. I'm sure that all of the broadcasts are trying to do what they can. The other thing is that any librarian will tell you that people like information, but what they really want is answers. So if you've got somebody who's looking for a specific question, try to find the answer as opposed to just, well, here are 15 websites that you can check. Information is relatively easy to come by. Answers, not quite so much. So connect with your neighbor through the phone, connect with your family members, particularly those who are not online.
Can I just add to that? This is Kaylee. I think, Wiz, you're absolutely right, and I just want to add that makes the CUD project so much more important for the future in providing more accessible connectivity, especially with times like this. And then also that phone connection too. It's another plug for putting your phone into the Hardwick phone book, because that is harder too. That is a choice. So encouraging folks to put in their numbers is also something that could help in the future.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And that's a free listing. It's a free listing in the Fortune Marketing phone book.
Right.
It's just that cell phones are not required to, the cell phone companies are not required to give that information to them. Comcast does, and other, what phone company do we even have? I don't even know. But you can call them and they will list you
There you
with
go.
whatever phone you have. If you have a cell phone, they'll put your cell phone number in the book.
It's not
And
going to make a difference.
it doesn't
next
cost
week.
anything. It doesn't make any difference next week, but that
long
stuff
term.
comes up in April, so,
Right.
for next year, you can be listed. Yeah.
Yeah, important points.
I guess one thing that I was thinking about is that this is sort of a really slow rolling thing. and it looks like it's gonna be unfolding over a period of time. And of course, we don't know exactly what's gonna happen, but I guess what I'm wondering about is in the near future or even a month or two out, is our current, town offices going to be able to handle the things that are going to come through from this? Are we able to, if you could be able to handle it, or are we going to need more personnel?
What are you thinking of, particularly, Lucian, for the things coming to the town offices?
Well, I guess what I'm thinking of in particular is that we, like saying that there's a 911, 211 system is very different than having people on the ground to actually know what's happening. And so if people are, needing to, like people, when it comes time when people are actually quarantining, who actually have it in town, and if there could potentially be, looking at other places, could potentially be a fair number of them. And if they need, food packages or who knows what to be able to stay at home. Right now, I don't really know what structure set up for that, or if it's just going to be a volunteer, just their friends are going to do it.
Right, some
I feel like a lot of the things that are happening are all kind of ad hoc, and I don't feel, at least maybe I'm wrong, maybe tell me if I'm wrong, that there doesn't seem to be a central point for people to, in the town to see if this kind of stuff needs to happen.
I wondered if there are a lot of high school kids who are very computer savvy and need to do community projects, community service. I wonder if there's anything going on in the school that they are collecting information and aggregating, creating a website at some place or another. I learned this afternoon about a Facebook page which has been pulled together by a former Hardwick resident named Mary Cordes, who's now a nurse at UVM, who has got this Facebook group called How Can I Help? #prepare. And it's just full of lots of bits of information about how to do so. It's got lots of answers to it. The Montpelier Mutual Aid Volunteers group has got a Facebook, or not Facebook, it's not a Facebook page, that is Montpelier resources that are there. It's the sort of thing that takes some technology, it takes some time, it takes somebody who's willing to go collect it and say, I'm the central character, send me your information and I will make it available. And I don't know if there's anybody in the community, it seems like the sort of thing that in 1918 the town would have turned to the Boy Scouts and they'd have taken care of, but we now have a whole high school of kids who are supposed to do community service. Is this something that any of them might be able to do or interested in doing?
So this is Kaylee. I think, Wiz, that's an awesome idea, and I'm sure that there are lots of innovative Hazen students who I'm sure could lend their computer services. I just wanted to kind of jump onto what Lucian was saying about, and certainly, Sean, you know more than any of us what the town offices need in a time like this, now that you're going through it. But the school has done remarkable things to serve the entire district. Can't help but think that whether it's delivering food, which is currently happening once a day through the entire district, or how there could be an opportunity for us to work with a school that already has so many different people who are supporting families. How could we collaborate as a municipal to extend that further out into the community? I don't know if now is the right time to have that conversation, because we are just at the tip of the iceberg of what this is going to look like for our community. But certainly, once we figure it out, I think that we've learned a lot about what our communities are capable of and how we can work together. So I really recommend that the town think about how not just Hardwick Elementary and Hazen, but the district as a whole can work with us.
Yeah, that's a great, I agree with you, Kayla. It's a great point. Aaron wants to add to this.
So just a few things I'll add to, I think what I'm reading out of Lucian's question too, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if this became much larger of an emergency in our local community, which was a very large effect. We already have a system in place, as every town in the state does, so we would work closely. We have, emergency management director, we have a tier system, which is known as the ICS, it's a command system, so we would essentially, if it were to get to a point and we would have to determine what that point was, we could actually open a local command center as well, and we would work out of that command center, setting up what we needed to with the assistance of the state EOC. So that system is set up, and even though this, is an emergency of not the same type we have seen, we have dealt with several emergencies. Tom has for, years and years, I have for years and years, and Sean as well. So, so you have a wealth of experience of people that have dealt with different emergencies throughout. And some of the, even though there is a difference to this particular virus, there are a lot of similarities when you come to emergencies, where you're working with people, whether it be flood, fire, et cetera, snow in Vermont. The emergencies are of different magnitudes. We have dealt with different magnitudes of emergencies, even locally, especially with flooding. So we actually do already have a tier system set up through that, through our own emergency management as well. If I'm hearing your question, hopefully I answered it a little bit too, Lucian.
Yeah, I think that, I guess I've seen a little bit of that through the select board, through the rescue stuff. But I guess what I was concerned about, what I was asking, was that it seems like that system's often set up for things that last hours or days, whereas this could last like a whole month. And so the people, I think including you, Aaron, both you and Tom, who are involved in that, you would want to set up that command center, or maybe you would, for that whole time and operate that whole time, because you have your other daily stuff that you've got to do. So I guess what I'm kind of asking generally is, like, do you feel like you might need support that's not there right now for that?
I think from my standpoint, I think what we would end up doing is, as far as the police department, I'm in a unique situation where, I'm already getting paid to do the duties in some ways. So some of the duties there would get handed down to the next person in line, my sergeant, who's up on everything that I do as well. So we would kind of have to shift duties a little bit, and probably Tom as well. We'd all work together to do that. So I think right now we do have the capability to be able to shift duties around and still be able to work through, an emergency for the period of time that this could possibly happen.
Okay, good, thanks.
And I think one thing that maybe would be most needed is some sort of central organization, and which is exactly what you're talking about. So, I think that we do have people who would be willing to volunteer. We have this, as Kaylee pointed out, we have the school already set up delivering food to people. So those are the kinds of things that we could pull in and access, but what would become necessary is the kind of coordination of all that, which would be our emergency management system.
I think I'm sorry, go ahead.
We're basically set up so that the police department could become an emergency center. We have all the phone lines, all the radios,
Can you guys hear that on the phone?
We set up the police department, when we did that in 2013. That was set up so that we could use that as an emergency management center if we needed to for some emergency, so that we have data lines that are wired in there, telephone lines, we have radios, televisions, so we can essentially use that. We have cooking facilities there now, on a small scale. We could use it for months, essentially. So we would utilize the part of the building that's not completely, utilized, just for a few different groups. So we would utilize that as well. So I think we had some forward thinking there, to set that up. Hopefully to sustain for several months if need be. The only thing, I know Danny brought up last year, the only thing we really should consider, I think, is generator that we haven't considered yet, but.
Right, and we have the generator in this building, in the memorial building, and part of the reason we have one here is because the police department used to be here.
Well, if the chips are down, I know where that generator's going.
Right.
No, I mean, really, we know how to move that if we need to.
Tom.
We can move that, don't you worry. This is Sean. I think also part of this discussion is we've got a lot of people that are trying to help their neighbors right now. So what's the best clearinghouse for that? Right now, the town is not acting as the clearinghouse. I don't think that's news. So I saw a post, and I can't remember if I saw this for Woodbury or Hardwick in the last couple of days, where somebody had said, look, I'm helping with a Google Drive item, and if you have some way you can help, just you can put it on that item. I mean, that's
I saw that
great
too.
if you have, if you have the internet connection, that's great. I know that's not perfect if you don't have it, but the spirit of that is it's somebody from the community who's trying to act as a reservoir of here's what's available for resources. So I can see if I could dig that up, because I think that's a part of this discussion more broadly. Lucia and I talked about this just a little bit this afternoon, and with the information at hand, we're okay. I mean, I shared with Lucian, it's busy right now just trying to keep up with the information. We're doing what we need to do at the town level, but the big unknown is, well, how complicated and how long is this gonna go? That's where, okay, we do need to activate our emergency operations center at the town level. We're not doing that, to be clear, but maybe there's, at some point, we would have to make a decision to do that. We're still gonna have to have some of these volunteer services to assist in this process, no different than when we went through Irene. I mean, a lot of people put personal time and effort and energy into helping out their neighbors to solve the problems. Just two other quick things. I have extended communications to the principal at the elementary school at Hazen. And at this phase, it's just, if you need anything from the town, just let me know, so I can get it to the pertinent person. Eric and I talked about this Monday morning. I said, look, if the structure of our operations changes significantly, if we have, and thank you to our field people, they're keeping right on it here and keep doing their jobs. But if something changes in regards to delivery on their jobs, okay, do we have to help with meals? Well, we could use a town employee or a town vehicle to help move a resource, whether it's a meal or something else, right? We can do that. So,
Yeah.
we have to, my observation is this, with the information at hand, we're gonna have to think outside the box and be really nimble how we go about this. And it's not just, this is the town operation, right? Mm-hmm. And that's all, that's what I might offer, so.
Okay, yeah, sounds good.
I just want to add to what Wiz was saying earlier in terms of, this is Kaylee, in terms of not knowing where to look for information. I think one of the things that is unique about the situation that we're currently in, and Doug was alluding to this earlier, is that it's changing every day. And sometimes every hour, what is open and what's available and what grocery store has what, and that is unique. And there are a lot of different people who are working to figure it out and to help people. But I personally worry that there's too many different communication streams, and it's easy to think that one thing is correct when a new thing has just happened. So I understand the town shouldn't necessarily be the emergency go-to for everything, but if we had a clear understanding of where we're getting our information, maybe it's just from the state, and that's the information that we're giving out. I think we should communicate where we're getting our information from and who we're giving it out to and how we're giving it out. Unfortunately, the Gazette's great and it reaches so many people, but it comes out once a week and everything changes. So I don't know if we decide right now or if we decide at a later, we don't really have a later time, but if we decide, this is where the town of Hardwick is getting its information, I think that would mean a lot to the community. So just a thought.
So I want to comment on this. We have been, for the last week and a half, we are continually referencing the Department of Health information, and we haven't changed, and I don't anticipate changing on that. So in regards to what we are relying on for information in regards to the coronavirus, it's healthvermont.gov/COVID-19 or call 211. I mean, that we have been pretty consistent on. I recognize there's some differences here as far as, okay, if I need resources, and I think that's, Kaylee, what you're getting at. If you need resources, that isn't necessarily listed through those means that I've just mentioned here. So
that's just what I was referring to, Sean. I think the town's done an amazing job of keeping everyone up to date on the health, like what the state has been saying. I think
Sure.
What I was referring to was more of like the resources
Yeah.
and the answers that Wiz was referencing earlier.
I think I think I can do a little bit more research. I'm willing to do this just to check on this, the Google tracking system that we both have seen on Front Porch Forum, to see if that's something that might be valuable. So.
It's, I mean, I think something like that could be useful. I mean, I think it's a little bit, anything that's sort of crowdsourced like that can attract a lot of information that may not be up to date or correct. I think that when we actually, I think right now is in some ways a very difficult period. I think if we get into a point where we're actually like mobilizing our emergency command center, then it'll be really clear. That's your point of contact, and that's what's gonna be organizing stuff. But right now, I think we're more in a phase of listen to guidance from the state health department. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what people feel. I don't know that the town at this point is at a point where, like, I would be concerned about trying to like mobilize our emergency command center too early, and because that's going to be very resource intensive for people.
Right. But this isn't that kind of resource or that kind of emergency.
Right.
What we need is a clearinghouse.
Right. So
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
So Wiz is saying that we're not really to that sort of emergency yet. What we really need is a clearinghouse, and I think
Right.
the problem may arise where a lot of people are trying to create clearinghouses.
Right.
And I think if we try to do that, we run the risk of being another one of those people trying to create a clearinghouse. But I don't know. That's just my thought.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
I totally agree, Eric. I think maybe my comment wasn't clear earlier, but I think what I was trying to say is that if we are going to provide any kind of resource information, that we just have it come from the same place, because it's going to change. So maybe that is whatever comes from the state, and we just keep it consistent with that, or whatever is coming from other municipals.
Yeah.
So we're not on the job of nonprofits or other people who are doing this great work.
Let's give it a month and see what it looks like.
Or 2 weeks.
Or 2 weeks, right, sorry.
Roughly. Yeah, so I mean, we do meet again in roughly 2 weeks, so we can see where we're at that point. In terms of if we need to change. And I think in the meantime, I would commend Sean for really sticking to, like, people for the health updates need to keep referring back to the State Department of Health. And I think the town website has been updated very frequently, which has been helpful, and it's been consistent. And Sean has also reached out to.
PD Facebook page.
Yeah, and Aaron's been updating the Facebook page, and he's sent communications to us and to Greensboro Select Board. I know Sean's been working with Leaf to anything that we can do to get things up on HGTV, which is, you know, quick turnaround too, like, so I think Sean is doing, and Aaron are doing the things that are helpful right now in getting a consistent message out to folks. And that message is, like you said, is gonna change. I mean, it seems to be changing daily at
It's
least.
changing by the hour.
Yeah,
And I agree, because there's misinformation that
There's a
has
lot
been
of
put
it.
out there.
yeah,
There has even been, you know, information, people urging, others to call the police department for, welfare checks. Well, we don't have the time to go out and check on everybody. There needs to be a reason for those welfare checks. It's just an example of, misinformation that's getting put out there. So, you know, it is important to, I totally understand where you're coming from, and making sure we're not, you know, getting misinformation, or others aren't getting misinformation, because I know there is some out there, especially regarding this particular, you know, virus and so on. So we're currently taking, I have some other avenues that come into me other than Sean. They're all government, either federal or state, you know. You know, their information is all the same so far. Nothing is conflicting, so.
And Tom's getting the same or similar reports, so, you know, the three of us are talking pretty regularly about, you know, anything new that you've seen, and we're talking about it, so
Yeah.
that messaging from that layer has definitely been consistent.
I think that's really helpful.
Yeah, you know, so I would caution people on maybe verifying some of the information they're getting. I mean, there's certainly some, on the interweb, there's a lot of different groups out there that are putting out some information that may not be correct. They heard it from neighbor 3 doors down, and they're putting it on, and now it's truth to everybody. So that may not be the case. I would encourage everybody to look at a .gov website, or the state health department website to get, you know, the most accurate information to the time. And I know that the state health department website updates daily. I'm getting those updates daily, Sean is, you know, as to the amount of cases of COVID-19, where they are, because there's a lot of speculation out there that somebody's heard there's a case in this county or that county. The state health department is updating us daily on where those cases are and how many cases there are daily, you know, each day, to total in the state, and how many tests have been given out so far and how many tests they're actually waiting for. So we're getting that information daily. So it's important for people not to listen to speculation as well.
Aaron,
and go
how
get
does
the
that
facts.
information come to you?
Through the internet. So I get it from the Vermont Intelligence Center. I get it from the
Does it come through your email, or does it come through some other
email. Yeah, everything's
email?
through email.
So it gets pushed at you.
Yeah,
You don't, you know, you're just standing there and it comes at you.
right.
If you put it on Facebook, you're waiting for somebody to go get it. They have to go
Yes.
and pull it.
Yeah.
Is there any way, the only push technology I can think of right now is Front Porch Forum. Is there any way that the most critical of this could be posted to Front Porch Forum? I know Sean has been using that very effectively. That you know, that comes at you whether you are actively looking for it or not.
Yeah.
And it's a very different type of communication.
But Sean's
Yeah.
been using that as a
Sean
tool to
has been
say,
using it, yes.
to push to people, these are the places to check for good information up to
And I-
date. And I think that's what we wanna, we wanna keep
So-
sending people
And I
to
think
those
we're-
same sources.
We're determining what's going out as what's pertinent. Right now, I don't feel that the amount of cases throughout the state is pertinent information to push out.
Hang on, Doug.
Yeah.
So right now, if somebody wanted to know how many cases there were of COVID-19 confirmed in the state, they can actually go to the Department of Health website and see the same
And
information.
that's exactly what they should do.
But it's not pertinent for us to push that information out because it's not something that really, you know,
It
we need
makes
to
people-
spend the time
It
doing.
makes people
so.
look to you as yet another source of information. We need to just be sending everybody to the same place. Yeah.
But this is Sean, to Wiz's point, what we could do, you know, if we see a need, right now, I've been using the Front Porch Forum platform just to get the Department of Health information out there. If we decide moving forward, here's a couple of resources that would be valuable for Hardwickians and people close by, that could be a part of that update moving
Yeah.
forward, right?
Yeah.
Doug, you had something?
Yeah, just so everyone knows that the urgent news they were reporting is 2 fatalities from COVID-19 in Vermont.
Huh.
So, I think the important thing to take out of this, the good thing to take out of this, if there is anything, is that we've all learned that it's important to wash your hands for 20 seconds.
Yeah. Hand washing is important. Yes.
Social
Totally.
distancing is really important.
Yep.
And a lot of things that we're learning to do, like washing our hands long enough, are things we should have been doing anyway to prevent the spread of the flu and the cold and, right? Hopefully social distancing doesn't last forever, but.
I know.
So can I also just mention something as well?
Yeah.
And so we've talked a lot about this at the school level, as you can imagine, and especially figuring out what the next couple of weeks are going to look like. And so I think we've been talking a lot tonight about systems, which is really important, but the next couple of weeks are going to be really, really different, and really different than this week even. Store sales are starting to close down, people are really hunkering down, and so I think mental health and support for mental health and well-being is going to be really important for our communities, and making sure that even in times like these, like you have neighbors, even if you can't go see your neighbor. And I don't know if that's the town's responsibility, but I think hope is really important, and especially when you have news like what you just shared with us, Doug, happening all the time. And I think we have to realize that Hardwick is not going to be protected from this. We can try and be preventative, and we can try and help as many people as possible, but everybody is at the high risk. And so how do we not have that be, how do we take that in a positive way? How do we make sure that people feel safe and supported, even though it's a reality for where we live? So I think it's helpful to try and stay positive with our messaging and try and say that you're not alone when we're sharing news from the state that's often very dry and very word heavy and hard to read and hard for people to understand because it's changing all the time, and it's usually not very friendly. So if we could try, my point being that I think hopefully, we're going to meet in another 2 weeks. In another 2 weeks, it's going to be a very different community, and it would be great to leave this meeting feeling like there's, maybe we add to our agenda something about checking in with the community, or knowing beyond what the Department of Health has been saying, where our community stands.
Yeah. So that's great. I think you're absolutely right that mental health and people's outlook are going to be affected by this, and really important to help bolster each other and help each other in as many ways as we can, including just trying to make people, like you said, realize they're not in alone, and we'll try to help each other. I don't know. I'm not.
Become a good neighbor on the telephone.
Yeah, exactly. Aaron said, become a good neighbor on the telephone. That's right. Reach out to people in the ways we still can. Reach out to people like email, by phone, however you communicate with them, and stay, just because you can't hang out with somebody doesn't mean you can't call them up and find out how they're doing and talk to them.
In this day of technology,
You got so many ways to communicate that you should take advantage,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
FaceTime, and I don't know, all the different, there's a lot
Lots
of
of
different,
stuff.
that you can actually physically see like we're using now, you know, so there's a lot of options out there that, people can stay in touch and actually see each other, so.
So I guess I would also say, I mean, our next regularly scheduled meeting is, would be
April 2.
April 2nd, which is in 2 weeks. If something changes, I mean, the select board has in the past convened, and sometimes more frequently than we care to remember, but we can convene at any point to address issues that are before the town. So our next scheduled meeting is the 2nd, but we can regroup before that if needed.
Item 3?
Item 3, if everybody's good, we're gonna move along. I added, is that okay?
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, so I am just thinking, you know, about all the stuff we've been talking about, that now there's been an order that restaurants and bars have to be closed. They're only open for takeout, and, thank you, Aaron. And, so, you know, I was thinking about we also know we have businesses in town whose clientele are dropping off for various reasons. Some of these businesses have economic development loans with the town of Hardwick. I think this is a place where the town could be flexible, and we could say, you know what, thank you, Tom. We don't need, we don't necessarily, if your business is suffering from this COVID-19 outbreak, we don't need, maybe we as a board say we don't need to receive payments on your loan. We can just let them go for,
This afternoon,
yes.
Andrew Cuomo announced for the state of New York a program that if you're in trouble with your business and have something or other, he's suspending required payments for 90 days. Interest will not accrue, no penalties will be applied, and it will not affect your credit rating. That means April, May, June. So it's sort of like if you've got a schedule of payments, you take these, you just stop
Like
this.
no time has elapsed.
No time has elapsed between the end of March to the 1st of July. I think it's a model that we could follow. It's, it's fairly simple to implement. Do we want to have people apply for it, or do we just want to grant it
So,
automatically?
I guess, so I don't know, did you guys all hear that on the phone?
Yeah, I think so. Basically, you wouldn't have to pay or have any penalties or anything if you didn't pay between March and July, is that what you said?
Yeah, that's what Wiz is proposing. I'll also throw out, I did see something, I don't remember the details, but in the state of Vermont, you can also get relief. Businesses can apply for various forms of relief right now. That could have been through Agency of Commerce, I'm not sure. But anyway, yeah, so I was thinking along similar lines that we could, but in terms of how people would tap into that, I was thinking we could reach out to folks who have loans. There aren't a ton of them, and we could just say, if, this is something that's available to you, if you want to take advantage of it, call Casey.
So, not to derail the discussion, but depending on what we look at moving forward, I think it's important for us to remember this is going to be a discussion for property tax. This is going to be a discussion for water and sewer bills. This is going to have larger ramifications moving forward.
So
And I'm not saying this to say we don't do this on the Economic Development Loan Fund, but we're going to have to think outside the box moving forward.
I think that, yeah, I mean, those are other things. I guess the difference though is that the water and sewer runs the water. That's how we have water to drink in a functioning sewer plant. The taxes run the town. That's how we have highways that are plowed. That's how we have all the government services and the police and everything. The Economic Development Loan Fund is for economic development in the town of Hardwick. It is something that it gets replenished when people pay back their loans, and then we're able to roll that money over into new ventures or same people doing new things or whatever it is, but we use that to encourage economic development in the town of Hardwick, and
It's
right now.
grant funded, it's not
Yeah, I understand.
taxpayer
I
funded,
understand. Yeah,
so it's
I
a
get-
different pool
Yeah.
of money.
So I think though that, it's just one small thing we can do it just, it's not, it probably only affects a handful, right, 10 or a dozen businesses. It's not really that big an impact. It's something small that we can do that really, all it does is puts a pause on that fund replenishing so that we can roll it out again, when in fact, putting a pause on something may be the biggest thing we can do to help these businesses.
Yeah, and what I was trying to illustrate was there are gonna be, some, folks in our community that, will have challenges, I would assume, moving
Yeah.
forward on these other things I
Yes.
mentioned. That's all I was trying to
I
say.
think you're absolutely right, and that's much more challenging.
No, absolutely.
Right,
So Union Bank is the manager of the
Yes.
Economic Development Loan Fund, so can we just direct Sean to check in with them and find out how we would potentially pursue this? Our next meeting isn't until April 1st. Those
Yeah.
loans for this month have been paid, I would assume.
yeah, so,
I can do that.
So couldn't we just, we can
So-
check into it, we don't necessarily have to decide tonight, but find out how difficult that would be. If it's possible, then we can make a decision about it at the next meeting.
so those of us, physically in the room are dominating this conversation. Select board members on the phone, do you wanna chime in?
No, I just couldn't quite hear what Sherry was saying, or I'm not sure who was saying it, but
Yep, so Sherry was basically saying, that, one option to move forward would be to direct Sean to figure out what it would take with Union Bank cause they administer all the loans, figure out what it
Oh.
would, just the administrative details, which is what we dump on Sean every time, is,
But let's be clear, Casey's gonna be doing this, okay?
right,
yeah.
Can I add to that task, not to add more, Casey, sorry, but it would be helpful for that decision if we knew, like roughly what the dollars were for that, and also 90 days, kind of when businesses pay and how that is it different for each business. As a new board member, I'd like to just know a little more information about how it works, so that way it's the same for all businesses, and then how we're setting a time limit on it and what that looks like would be helpful in making that decision at our next meeting.
So this is Sean. What's interesting about this discussion is we were going to be doing a quarterly report on the fund at the April 2nd meeting.
Yeah.
So it's like we're just in front of it. So we didn't get a chance to check in on that last week, Kaylee. So we'll get some information and get some numbers to everybody. So am I hearing that we want to look at a 90-day window in broad terms? Or just see what the
That's-
options are at this point, then we can discuss it further
I
at
mean,
the April 2nd.
certainly if there are businesses that don't need it, they can decide
need to
to
do
not
it.
do it. They don't
Because
have to.
For any, right, because so a business
But
that
it's
maybe
just-
didn't need it, then this would just extend the term of their loan, which might not be something they wanna do.
Okay,
But-
so what I do is just see what our options are at this phase, just in general terms. See, I don't think we would.
Yeah, I
face-
think,
Go ahead.
yeah, I think that's a good idea, but I wouldn't mind numbers for, if we do it for 90 days, because that sounds reasonable at this point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it sounds like a good thing for us to pursue.
Can I ask one quick question about the loan fund too? Is now an appropriate time, Sean?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm just looking at the policy right now and looking at the objectives being job creation and retention. And so I'm just wondering if we've thought about how businesses might be coming to us for loans during this time, and especially over the next couple of months. Like if I'm not sure if it was Wiz or Sherry mentioned New York supporting businesses. If we had
Uh-oh.
I'm not sure how many businesses are aware of this or if it could support businesses or how much money we necessarily have in the revolving loan fund. But I could see it really being helpful for some businesses who wouldn't normally access this to kind of get through the next couple of months. And if we have a plan for that.
Yeah, so we haven't, to my knowledge, we haven't set up anything like to have an emergency loan availability. It is something we definitely could think about. But,
I don't think we have much in the account at the moment, though, right?
well, I think it's coming back up, so, and I think we're gonna get that information. I think, yeah, you're right, it's not a ton. It's gonna be on the order of like 50,000 or something in there, total.
That's correct.
Oh, okay, okay.
So, but, you know, that
That could help some.
that's something that, you know, we could look at how to best leverage that, perhaps.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think that's good if we get more information for next time, and we will have a more informed decision on it.
Okay. I was just thinking, you know, I think that this is a kind of a small, relatively painless step we could take, deferring payments on those things for those who want it. And again, it's not, whatever, it's not a panacea. It doesn't affect that many businesses, but it does affect some in our downtown, and some of those businesses are closed right now.
Yep. Yep.
So, and yeah, and we can think about, I guess, in the interim between now and our next meeting, we could all be thinking about any creative ideas for, you know, making what is in that fund available and how and that kind of thing. I mean, it's always available, up to this point, it's always been available for folks to apply for if they were doing, you know, what some of the things that Kaylee just noted, like job creation and things in our town. So anyway,
Next time.
but that whole fund is really the select board's discretion, so we can be creative if we want to be. All right, so we'll hit that on April 2nd. Select board reports. I just want to note a couple things. All town, with the exception of this body, and I guess potentially the electric department, Board of Commissioners,
they make their own determination.
they make their own determination, but the
And
other.
the library as well.
Other town, right, but the other town appointed boards like Planning Commission, DRB, those folks, are gonna not meet until further notice. So, just so folks know. The only other thing, I was asked to share that the health center is still opening, or still operating, sorry, the health center is operating, and they've been doing a lot of planning in anticipation of this COVID outbreak, and they ask that you call, do not drop in.
To the point about how we're working in the community, I had been in touch with the director there, so just like I'd done with the schools, just a basic communication to say if there's anything that we could assist, meaning the town, you know, please let us know. So trying to get some of those other contacts out there, if you will. Another example being Greensboro. They have an emergency operations volunteer committee that's kind of working together. Well, now I've got a single point of contact there, being Tim Nesbitt with Rescue, and folks are familiar with Tim, of course. Tim and I actually talked last Friday about, you know, what are some of the things that we can be doing to help each other. So we're continuing to work on those issues that are in the spirit of how do we help everybody around us, not just be in that layered emergency response system, if you will. So we're working on that.
Other select board reports?
Yeah, Eric, this is Kaylee again. I had mentioned to Sean that I wanted to provide a report to the select board members and then also to the public who might be listening and watching on ACTV. Just the essential childcare worker update from the schools, and then also the meal schedule. Is now an appropriate time to provide that information?
Yes, that's perfect. That would be great if you can provide that.
Great, and I am just going to read it,
Yeah.
which is an email from Adam Rosenberg, who's the superintendent of the school. And all of this information is also on the district website and each individual school website. So starting next week, the district will be providing childcare to essential persons at Hardwick Elementary School, and that's available for, right now, it's available for kindergartners through graders that attend any school in the district. I'm actually going to be organizing that program, so I'm a great person to reach out to if anybody has questions about it. There will be more information about that and what essential persons means on the district website, because that is changing daily. We are also providing meals, and all this information again is on the school websites. This is important to know if you're a family that signs up to receive free meals. The volunteers who are dropping off meals will be marking houses or trees or whatever they can find with electrical tape, so that way it's easy for them to identify housing and who is getting those meals. So in addition to home deliveries, which are happening daily, there are 3 sites where you can pick up meals. It's Craftsbury Academy, Hardwick Elementary School, and Union. And there's breakfast available at these sites from 7:30 to 9, and lunches are available from 11 to 12:30. We just ask if families are picking up those meals that they maintain safety protocol. And those are the 2 main updates I wanted to share.
Great, thank you very much. Anybody else have any reports?
No.
Hearing none, any
I got new business, sorry. I got ahead of you there. Go ahead, finish. What were you gonna say, Eric?
new business?
Yeah. Can I read a thank you note from
Yeah.
Lorraine Hussey?
Yeah,
So we got a really nice note from Lorraine, and what it says, I gotta get my cursive reading glasses on here. Dear Select Board members, this is dated March 9th. Thank you so much for the honor of dedicating the town report to me. I was very surprised and overwhelmed by this, and it has taken me some time to respond. My family and I have lived in Hardwick for many years. It has been a great place to live, rear children, and enjoy life. We had a ladies' apparel store for 30 years and had the support of townspeople that enabled me to be successful. My husband was a telephone man for most of that time, and we were involved in town matters and had a large group of friends. Thank you for all your time and effort to make this a good place to live. Sincerely, Lorraine Hussey. So that's a really nice note from her.
that's very
So
nice.
we hit the mark there, of course.
Well, thank you to Lorraine for all she does. Any other new business, old business? All right, hearing none, I declare us adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Good night.
Good night.
Thanks, Doug. Thank you. Good night, everybody.